Oh, hi. I hope that this is working and you can hear me. I tried going live a few minutes ago and it just froze basically, but it is what it is. Whatever it is, we're going to march onwards and keep going. So, today we're going to cover why a lot of astrologers don't share their birth times and their own birth charts when asked by people. And it seems to make people pretty mad. They don't like it. And oh my God, I just had the comment here. I had a comment. So we're going to get into that. Okay. So again, I'm not really sure if this is working properly because I had issues a couple of times trying to go live, but let's get into the topic, which is why astrologers don't share their birth details, birth time, um, charts, even, and all that information. And it seems to really bother people. So here is the question from our viewer, Rocky. And of course, I have answers. I always come prepared. And he says, "Hey, Monica. Hey. Hey, Monica. There's a question that's bugging me lately about the astrologers and their birth data. Might be a little naive question, no such thing, but go for it, Kate. But why don't they reveal their natal chart? I only got one response from a famous astrologer. She said something about white and black magic hexes and sensitive points in a natal chart, like the South Node, or as you call it, Ketu, right? Any idea?" Yes, I do have ideas. I always have ideas. Okay, so basically there are going to be, I think, two major camps of why people don't do this. And the first one is going to be the answer that this person is given, and the second one is going to be the answer that I'm going to give you. So the basically, here we go. The reason, as you said, is she mentioned hexes, curses, black magic, things like that. Okay, everything comes from one source of life. There's only one creator, one maker. We call it God, source, I don't know, whatever, all that is, whatever. Okay. To me, it's God. I just call it God. And I don't believe, maybe I had a lot of religious influence in my childhood or something, but I don't believe God has an opposite. There's no such thing. I think those people need like an IQ test or some kind of psychiatric assessment. It's not possible for all that is to create an opposite, an equal. There's no equal. It's not possible. Okay. So that means that anything that's kind of like evil or inflicted by evil to me doesn't come from anything scary or high and mighty. It's just like regurgitated. It basically comes from other people. So, like fearful thought forms are to me like what I would call an enemy. Okay. So, that being said, I think I just had it drilled in me when I was young that there's nothing to fear but God. So I'm not a paranoid person. And so when it comes to hexes and curses, I think the worst thing you can do is basically curse yourself. But the thing is, you give so much thought and time to thinking that something outside of you can actually hurt you, that does become an egregore. And then it does become alive and it becomes very real to you. It's not real to other people, but it's real to you. Okay. So that's the first thing. So can this be done? Yes, it can, because that's what people truly believe, and I know how to do it as well. I've never personally done it because I don't care to. What you do to yourself, you do to another, because we all have one maker. We're all spiritually related. So I would wish the best for people. Okay. And if they're really, really mean, I would wish them to get away from me or that they find peace or something. Okay. So the first thing that I want to quote is going to be scripture. Okay. If you look to the book of Isaiah, it says, "See, it is I who created the blacksmith who fans the coals into flame and forges a weapon fit for its work. And it is I who have created the destroyer to wreak havoc. No weapon forged against you will prevail. And you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and it is their vindication from me, so declares the Lord." So the modernized version, and this is sorry, Isaiah, is it 54? This is the modernized version of the "no weapon formed against me shall prosper." Okay. And I want to break that down. So let's consider a birth chart having sensitive points. Okay. Isaiah 54:17. Yes, there are, because we're human, everybody has a vulnerability around something. Okay. For some people, it's money. For some people, it's emotional availability, vulnerability, relationships, health, whatevs. Basically, if someone wanted to inflict something negative, they can use that soul blueprint, as it were, to do that. However, this is not recommended, not only because it's cruel, it would be a lie to say that people don't do it. I know people do it. I'm not paranoid about that because I believe I belong to the Most High, and so therefore that just doesn't apply to me. I'm an exception. But if you had that sort of willfulness, it would apply to you as well. It applies to everyone. But because like nobody would make a child only to curse them. God just wouldn't do that in His infinite wisdom. But think of it like this: when I was 22. I went traveling for about 2.5, 3 months by myself. I went backpacking on my own. And at that time, there was no like looking back on it now. I remember this coworker, her name was Beatrice, and she said, go now while you're young. You won't want to do when you're older. Just think of just you won't. You'll be paranoid. You'll think about you're just like bold and brazen when you're young. Just do it now. And I thought, all right, whatever, let's go for it, right? And before I left, I wanted to, I was really into like theology as a young person, so I was really into saints. So I wanted to find a little pendant of Saint Christopher to keep me safe. He's the patron saint of travelers. So I thought I wanted to find a pendant of Saint Christopher. I'm gonna wear it on my trip, so everything will be fine. And I couldn't find one, and luckily I couldn't find one because when I was on the trip, I was actually in on a train in Italy, and I had the thought, the reason everything, even though chaos did happen, everything worked out. One way I got missed trains, I didn't have places to sleep, like it just kind of worked out. Okay. I thought because if I bought that under the assumption that it would keep me safe because I was vulnerable, then it would invite unpleasantness to me so that I could prove the power of this thing, this little like piece of metal. And so I thought that is so funny that when you wear something for protection, you're inviting the opposite of it. Kind of like when people have like, don't get me wrong, I like evil eye imagery. I think it's beautiful. But again, I don't believe in it in a dualistic manner, like this versus that. There's a way to transcend all of those things. Okay. So I thought it's so funny that, you know, you would buy this thing to protect you, but then invite that. Or if you like are paranoid and you buy the evil eye, you're inviting people to gossip about you. So I thought, okay, so I just don't care for that. Full stop. Now, the reason I wanted to bring up Book of Isaiah, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. So notice that this is so funny to me because life is just life and it's not as black and white as people think it is. And in some cases, it may be, right? Like I just said, very matter of fact at the beginning, there's only one source. So what are you afraid of? It's like squabbling with your sibling, you'll get over it. Like we're all bound together somehow, right? It doesn't say no bad thing will ever befall you. It doesn't say you'll never have a bad day, you'll never cry, you'll never frown, you'll never be frustrated or be tempted by road rage. It just says that weapons will not prosper against you. So if we take into account like a birth chart, that's just a tool. And to me, that can only take you so far. I've always said that. That can only take you so far. You need your own willpower. You need your own self belief. You need your own faith to push you the rest of the way. Okay. So I've always said that. If I say you have to apply like crazy in the month of February, it's a hot spot this year. If you're looking for a new job, if you sleep through February, you're on your own. But if you put in the work, you'll probably have better results. Okay. So it's just about timing. It's about effort. Anyway, it doesn't say that nothing bad will ever happen. It just says it won't prosper against you. So that's the first thing. So if you think about like birth charts, for example, as we're talking about here, okay, some people might use them irresponsibly. That's totally on them. So, let's say like this is a kitchen knife. I use it to cook. That's its intended purpose. If you use it outside of its intended purpose to hurt yourself or others, that's a misuse of the same thing, but the thing still exists. So to say that, this thing is evil, is a misuse of the understanding of it. And to actually misuse it is to misappropriate its a true intention, which is only like a tool for direction, okay? But it's not magical or anything like that. It's you. When you combine that, you make the magic happen inside of you with your faith. Otherwise, it's just dead. That's why it doesn't work for some people. And I said that a lot of times in my older videos. I said, if somebody asks a flop question with zero zest for life, zero fire in their spirit, they don't get a good answer because they don't believe it. So they're just wasting their own time, okay? So that is, of course, the first thing is people are paranoid about hexes and curses, which to me is sort of funny because the first thing that you should learn or be taught by a responsible and credible person, if you are so lucky to find one, though you don't need one, but say that you did, is that free will exists. You have ultimate free will. So if you put your faith into that, that's what you're going to get evidence of. If you don't, you will not get evidence of it. I never put my faith into that. I'm not a paranoid person. I wasn't born that way. I wasn't raised that way. That's fine. Okay. So the other thing too is I have to also preface that because I had so much cultural religion swirling around me, I think, that superstition was not encouraged. I just don't, I think like my parents were really sensible or something, so we just aren't superstitious people. Like in general, we're not like, don't do this and don't say that, and you have to do this time and knock 3 times and then spit on your left foot and touch your nose and then da, da, da. Like it who cares? It's God's will prevail. So don't worry about it. Okay, so that's the one thing. So yes, it can be done, it can be used, but it can also be used for good things. Okay, so I can talk about that at the end if you're interested. But moving on to the second group, which I would fall into, is simply human bias. So the reason I don't really care for it is um there's just no point. I don't know if that makes sense. I think a lot of the times people ask that question from their place of understanding. Sometimes it's curiosity, like, people want to know, "You remind me of a Taurus, you remind me of my girlfriend, she was an Aquarius, you're an Aquarius," like, something like that, like, that's totally fine, but most of the time I do feel that it's like they want to categorize or classify you somehow, validate you or invalidate you. So if you give them a little bit of information, they're gonna, like, run with it and make assumptions, and that's what I don't like. I don't want that sort of, I don't know, like, minimal understanding. I'm not playing into that. Like everyone hates Geminis and everyone hates this and and they're dangerous and they're mean and they're this and they're always nice. And that's not true. Everyone's a mix of something. We're all a smorgasbord of like cosmic dust. So I don't like that divisive thinking. But I will say I do have, if you watch all my videos, if you watch my lives, you will find my full thing, everything on there. Birth year, everything is on there. Okay. Birth, everything. So like all things to deal with spiritual maturity and growth in life, I will not spoon feed you anything. If you want it, you can find it out. Okay, it's there. I have my full chart, including some Varga charts that I've analyzed myself on my Patreon with everything on there. Okay. So the reason I think that this is also important for transparency is it's a matter of maturity and trustworthiness. I don't trust KG people. I don't think that you know, that's just like weird form of arrogance. It just doesn't vibe with me personally. I have studied from astrologers who are like this, and I immediately just disregard everything they say. If that's how you think, I have nothing I can learn from you. You're a grown man. You don't trust yourself. You're like middle aged and paranoid. Ciao. We're just like two different people. Sorry. Like, no disrespect. Again, it's just like nothing for me, right? But, I know like Joni Patry in some of her videos, she'll be like, "Oh, like I'm a Saturn, I'm a Karaka." I think once she said I'm a Libra or whatever, Sun's debilitated in Libra, but, she's a tropical Scorpio or whatever. So, like, little things like that are nice. You can piece things together. I do know some software that I own. When I opened it, there was a database, and there was a database for astrologers, and the maker of it put in his own chart. So I trust that. I think that's wonderful. If you think about it, like if you went to whatever chiropractor's office or a doctor's office, and they didn't have their credentials on the wall, and they said, "Just trust me, take my word for it," you'd go, maybe not. So obviously, I think it's a trustworthy thing to do. Not that and I understand, like, especially if you watch a lot of content from someone who's in this world and they've read for a lot of people, sometimes people are just curious, and it just makes them feel safe and comforted, like you're accessible to them. So I completely respect that, and I will, sometimes a client will write me and say, "You sound just like my sister when you talk, and they have a Mercury in this. Do you have that?" And I can answer or whatever. That's totally fine. It's a humanizing experience. If you're always closed off to people, I just don't think there's anything to fear. But basically, yeah, you should. So I trust people like that, but I can also appreciate that they won't talk about it all the time, 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 right? They're gonna like make a few videos and it's sort of in there. And if you find it, you find it. If you don't, you don't. That's what it is, right? And never underestimate the power of your own mind to get answers because it has happened on 2 occasions. I don't know why exactly. I don't remember. It was like years ago, but the astrologer in question did make me really mad. And I thought, they're just like mean. They're just like a mean spirited. What is this? So I thought, do you know what? I don't know how. I'm just going to find it out. And honestly, within like a couple of weeks, I don't know what happened. They had like a complete reversal of heart. But like I did it all in my mind and they just emailed their or what it was, like a chat, I don't know what it was, but they just sent their they sent their chart with the birth time and everything, and I'm so, like, annoying, that I basically tried to do it myself, and I was 5 minutes off from their birth time, but I pieced together as much as I could from going back through all our old correspondence, and I thought, "Durr," you know? So you don't need to be like that either, that's also not very healthy, but basically, there's nothing to hide, and it neutralizes people. It neutralizes them when you're not paranoid. When you're paranoid and standoffish, it makes them kind of dig in a lot more, okay? So don't worry about that. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention was going to be you asked, uh, okay. So people who are paranoid, basically, we're going back to the first camp. People who are really into the occult. Like I said, you have to figure things out yourself. You have to know that you are just as divinely protected as any other creation of our maker, and there's just nothing to be worried about. Okay. Isaiah 43:13. I love this line. None can deliver out of my hand. I love that. Yes, and from ancient days, I am He. No one can deliver out of my hand. When I act, who can reverse it? So if you are made in the image of the Maker and you're pure and you're here to have a joyful life experience and be loving, what good or purpose does it serve for you to spend an ounce of your energy, a minute of your time in fear about some like mass hysteria? I just don't know. So it's not for me. So I was just like, I don't really care. I don't really care. I could be wrong, but I don't feel it. Like I don't feel under attack or something like that. Okay. So that's the first thing. So going back to that first part. So second, I fall into the second camp where I just don't want people to think, oh, because you're this sign, that's the way you are. Because, people ask me, they always say, what's your sign? What's your sign? I always jokingly say the dollar sign. That's it, because there's no point. There's no point. I don't, but if you want to find out, it's definitely here and it's on TikTok and it's on my Patreon. Okay. So moving on. Can it be done? Yes, it can. I would be lying if I told you that it could not. I mean, I'm speaking from what I've learned. I haven't put it into practice because I have no desire. Okay. I rely on, it's funny enough, I'm holding an astrology cup and I'm like crapping all over astrology. Thanks. Shout out to Value Village. Speaking of which, that's so funny. I just realized if you're really observant, my sign is the sign on the cup. Okay. So there you go. See, God is so funny. Isn't that funny? Okay. So, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Weapons will be made, they will not succeed. So, don't be worried. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, none can deliver out of my hand. You belong to the one most high. Anything that happens between now and then, for you to realize that is irrelevant. It's in the past. The past is dead. You are safe, whole, and worthy. Everything is cool. Okay. So, how would you do it? Okay. So, instead of using a negative example, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use a positive example. And I'm also going to add something. Say that you're happily married and you don't want to show your chart because you are afraid that someone can, basically it's energy transference. That's all it is. And metaphysical principles or esoteric wordage and verbiage. It's just siphoning. It's just taking it from here to there. Okay. The reason I don't care for such things, not that I don't care as in like I rebuke them and I'm scared of them. I don't care because it's childish and unworthy to discuss, is that it presupposes that there is an exhaustive amount of happiness. There's only so much money, there's only so much health, there's only so much joy, there's only so much marital bliss. And if someone taps into it, it's going to steal it from you. It's not possible. If you're happily married all the days of your life, you're in the sanctity of marriage, everything is fine. Okay. But if you start to think it can be stolen or taken from you, you've basically just damned yourself. Okay. So that's the first thing. So let's say somebody is an astrologer and they're happily married and they don't want to show their chart. And the reason they don't want to show their chart is because they're paranoid that someone's gonna siphon, I always get the visions of someone with a rubber tube, like stealing gas from like a camper van or something, and they're gonna siphon some of that onto themselves, away from you. That's not possible. If it's yours, none can deliver out of his hand. He has blessed you with happy married life. So if that person was to use it for inspiration or do a little whatever spell work, whatever they're into, okay? That's their own imagination fueling that possibility. They really can't come near you. It cannot come near you. The pestilence will not come near you. You're fine. Hi, Karina. Heart, 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 heart. We're getting really biblical today. I hope you appreciate. So we're talking about curses and how some people that are like into this stuff are really paranoid about their charts, and there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, so let's say then they want to be happily married, and they see in someone's chart. Say they find a celebrity, for example. That's a really good example, and they start listing through looking for happily married celebrities. And they find one. They go, "Oh my god, this person's happily married. Amazing." And so they go online and they find their chart and they say, "Okay, I'm gonna fixate on that chart and siphon some of that vibe." Right? Okay. Also, I've always said this. I've said this many, many times. Most celebrities do not have their actual birthdays or birth times, especially politicians. Most especially politicians. Hi, Megan. We're talking about paranoia and the occult today and everything else, but um, and this for this reason, they think that they're like protecting themselves or something, which again to me is just like silly. But who cares what I think? I'm just answering the question. So I'm telling you the truth. So what they'll do is they'll cast that chart and fixate upon it. Now there's two things you have to understand. Number one, most people don't actually know how to do it. So even though I'm giving you and Karina, that's so nice. I'm giving you a basic rundown without like actual practice, knowledge of aspects, timing, it's probably just going to miss the mark anyway. So it's not really going to work effectively. Secondly, it works to the degree that you have faith in it. So that's another one. And then the third thing is you don't actually know the full story. So let's say you see someone who has a Venus in Taurus or an exalted Venus, and you're thinking they're happily married. I want that. So I'm going to fixate on that birth chart. Okay. And you're supposed to like focus on it visually or carry around a copy with you so you could put a whatever, like a screensaver on your phone, laptop, print it, who cares, right? What you have to also understand is say you did that for marriage, take take the trouble to learn things about people. You don't know if they're healthy, you don't know if they're struggling with fertility, you don't know if their parents are in good health, you don't know what their finances are like. So if you activate one thing, you might cause a domino effect to topple and activate a bunch of other things. Also, limited knowledge of astrology is another problem. I'm not saying this to be cruel in any manner. I'm really not that brilliant or special in any manner whatsoever. I'm nobody. Okay, we know this. But most people that say that they're intermediate or advanced are not. Okay, that's just the truth. That's just what I've observed. They kind of like consume things in passing. And so they'll see that, like, oh, that person has an exalted Venus. That's amazing. I'm going to focus on the chart, not understanding the repercussions of a Rahu Mars conjunction, Saturn Moon aspects. So they'll get happily married, but they'll be miserable. So they're not happily married. They're married. Or maybe the spell breaks or something, or they look at the Jupiter, they're like, I'm gonna get so much money. This is amazing. That person has Jupiter in Pisces, overlooking, something in the second house, a malefics, and they're left with an eating disorder, or a hoarding problem. So you have to understand the full scope that everything comes at a price. And this is why I love the line, none can deliver out of my hand. Because basically, when you do things through human means, it does tend to come at a price. The price is your energy, your effort. There's a cost, right? It's you're putting some kind of work into it. God does an effort because everything belongs to God. So if you just bypass all of that and go straight to the source, you can just have it without reading the fine print, without hidden cost, hidden messages, hidden anything. Okay. So basically that's how you would do it. You would find it. So and apply it to yourself. So let's say I said Venus. So you're a man wanting to be married. Your Venus is in Aries with Rahu. Okay, you have problems. It's in the 12th house. You're going to find the chart of someone who has a healthy Venus. And this is where it really helps to know your aspects. It should be positively aspected. If it's receiving an aspect, it should not be from Saturn. It should not be from any malefic. Okay. And then you can take the rest of the chart as well. And no one's chart is perfect. That's the thing too. No individual is like born lucky or born cursed because everything has a balance. Okay. Like hi Nazreen, I don't have a particularly like fortunate or special chart or something like that, but it's made me tough. Like I have fortitude. So when I have a bad day, I don't feel as bad as maybe somebody who has what people would call a lucky chart, but they just don't have that strength. Okay. So it's all the same. It's just coping mechanism. So then you would focus upon that and try to get some of that. But you have to understand how to superimpose it on your own chart. That's another thing. Okay. So if you wanted money, you found a Jupiter in Cancer and you think, oh, that's great. That person has Jupiter in Cancer. I want to get a promotion. I want to get a raise. I'm gonna take that chart with me. But you're a Sagittarius rising, and now your chart lord is exalted in the eighth house. That's overreaching. That's falling from greatness. Okay, that's your own demise. You're basically plotting on trouble. So you have to understand certain things. So maybe Jupiter is not the best route for you. You have to kind of circumvent it and think, okay, who is my pick a financial house, pick that lord, see if its standing and health in your chart, work with that. And then, as I promised to be truthful, the opposite is true. Okay, if you wanted to raise hell, the opposite is true. But basically, there's no need for that. That's just ridiculous. Crying in Jupiter and Sagittarius in the first house. Oh, that's good. Okay, so it's in its own yeah, so that's good. It's in the strongest house. It has Digbala on the first. That's good. See, the also Jupiter is said to negate karma in the first house to a great degree. So if a person was to sustain a type of like injury or something, it's never as bad as it could have actually been. Okay. Um, so that's fine. I mean, I have eighth lord in the first house, which is makes me accident prone. But we rebuke that. We don't put that on ourselves. Not me in love with a Sag rising. Wow, look at that. Yeah, you told me that. Okay, yeah. So you guys are good. You know what I mean? So anyway, I have moon in the first two. That's Gaja Kesari Yoga, June. Yeah, it is June. Jupiter Moon conjunction is a Gaja Kesari Yoga. It's extremely auspicious. So it's very happy-minded people. So whatever was to happen to them, they just I think of them as people who heal like Wolverine. They're like they just like retract their claws and they're fine again. But basically, to answer your question, I don't. That's pretty much why. And you also have to understand that's hot. That's so hot. Mm-mm-mm. Is it's just human beings projecting their own limitation onto themselves. And honestly, this is going to sound nuts, but a couple months ago I joined a group of someone whose specialty in the occult is demonology. Okay, I just thought this person's full of knowledge. I joined for 2 months. It was just online. I went to one seminar, and this is the power of your mind. I remember watching their videos thinking, I just want to know your sign. That's all I thought. I said, I just want to know your sign. But my faith is so strong that I thought, I don't have to do anything. I never messaged this person. I never asked this person anything. I just said, let me join this. Like, you can like join the channel or the whatever, right? Well, let me see what's going on here. So I joined it. 2 days later, after not posting for weeks, it was like dead. There was nothing on the chat. There was nothing in the group. It was dead. The Facebook group was long deleted. It was just this person was unreachable. They take your money, but they're unreachable. And I thought, what in God's name is this? 2 days later, they announce a seminar in magic and lo and behold, astrology. And I thought this has got to be a joke, right? And now I'm excited because I always want to learn. Sure enough, I get there, I don't learn a thing, right? Sure enough, like halfway through these slides, I don't ask this person nothing. Okay, I talk about other things. They just pull up a chart, the full chart, and he says, oh, by the way, this is my chart. Birth time, place, date, everything in 48 hours. I didn't do anything but ask the question. And you know what? It meant nothing to me. I saw it and I thought, meh, like I just, so what? So don't worry about anything. You can summon the answer. You can just summon it. You don't have to, as Neville Goddard says, you don't have to burst a blood vessel asking God for what you want. He knows what you want. You just have to let him give it to you. So in terms of like why, like you can, yeah, sure, you can use other people's birth charts to get things, da, 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 but it just seems like you're going to burst a blood vessel doing that. You're going to break a sweat and ruin your makeup that you paid so much money for. I just don't see the point. I just don't see the point. Personally, I think it's funny. I think it's nice. I think it's cute. It's not necessary. You can do it if you think it's fun. You can do it if you think it's curious, if you are curious. But ultimately, really, it's just not the most empowering thing that you can do. So who actually cares, right? So I'm not into all of that. Okay. That being said, I did have a Patreon video that came out. I think it was this month. It's still April. Yes. Okay. So we did the series on things like Tantra and curses and hexes and things. Okay. And then the last one I made public, and it's how people relieve themselves of selves of these things. And I said in that video that in March I was in like an Arab grocer and I saw hyssop, but I didn't realize that I actually had some at home. But this is to consume, so it's like food grade. And in excuse me, in the Bible, hyssop was used to basically aid in exorcism. It's known as like very, very cleansing, and it's very cleansing of the spirit. Okay, so when Jesus was on the cross, they put a sponge in vinegar and held it on a branch of hyssop up to his mouth as well. So hyssop is like, it's purifying, it's cleansing, and obviously he said, Father, to your hands I commit my spirit. And then his body, it is finished, his work is done, and he cleansed, he left. Okay, before he came back. So I thought about it and I was like, you know what, don't be afraid of anything, just drink hyssop, have your tea, whatever little ritual comforts you, whether it's prayer or not, that's fine. But you should not walk through the world feeling like anything that another human being has basically designed can actually hold any power over you. You just slow yourself down. And paranoia is not a vibe, and it's kind of like an unhappy thing, you know? And these things can simultaneously exist as well. So it's like an energy thing. So I'm not one to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I do find it so funny how our mentality just penetrates everything. I have a very good friend who is really into this, okay, like astrology, and they had a Catholic upbringing, and it just makes me laugh that they're like so into spirituality, and they'll say this thing is good, and that person is this sign, so therefore they're good, but not that person. That person's a bad person because they're that other sign, and I hate that sign. And I just think that doesn't make sense because you have elements of that inside yourself. Okay. But another thing is then they'll go to mass with their little idols and things and icons and be like, oh, everything's cool now. But also everyone's a hater and everyone's out to get me. Well, which is it? Do you have the protection of the Almighty or do you not? Like you have to choose. It's just like this constant like back and forth. It's just confusing and you're very, very scattered. Just pick a path, be strong, be bold, assume the best for yourself and go forth. So to answer your question, long story short, that's why they probably hide from it, is because they know the potential. And it really, I think it does work. I just, again, I don't play with that. I don't care to. Not that I think, like, again, when it comes to spirituality, it's so hard sometimes to talk to people because they want to moralize everything as good or bad. That's you're not winning that fight. Okay. There's a third option, is to just rise above it. And ultimately, um, when I say that, you know, human life is like this wonderful, vast experience. So Rudolf Steiner said something really brilliant. He said, there's no such thing as good or evil, but the context and the timing will make it so, basically. So, people will say, I use this thing and it really helped me. Like I got a reading, but now I'm over it and I outgrew it. And that's good. You should outgrow it. You're supposed to move past certain things, right? But I don't really care what you use it for. That's between you and yourself. And you're going to answer for your actions. I don't have to answer for those things. So I don't care. Okay. I'm not saying that to be like judgy. I'm not saying that, like, again, I'm not saying it because I think like there's some moral high ground. I just think people are just where they are at the time that they're at in life, and they're growing and learning, and everything is valuable and everything is a lesson. And that's a good thing, because I was there and I'm still there. I'm going to keep being there until I take my last breath. So if it's any consolation, I don't think it actually matters. I don't think that you should do it just because it's sort of it's a poor demonstration of faith. You should have more confidence in yourself that you can get good things without assuming that you have to take it from someone else. I just think that's sort of like silly. You can have anything. So why would you? You could summon answers out of thin air. I've done many times. I remember one during COVID, I think it was 2020, autumn of 2020 or spring of 2021, early in the lockdowns, and all I could really do is go walk in the park, and I was getting ready to go walk in the park and I was listening to a lot of Reverend Ike. I love him so much. And something I just said, I just wish I had his birth details. I'm just curious to see, why he's so wealthy and he's like a prosperity gospel type of person. The second I thought that thought, how YouTube like just has a playlist, it spits out random videos. The next video, and I have not been able to find it since. This is the craziest thing. It's the only time I've watched it or heard it. I've never found it since. The next video that played, the interviewer opened introducing him. And I don't even know why, because I've watched countless hours of this man's everything, okay? Countless. I've lost count. It's been years. And he opened with, "Well, my name is Dr. Eichencoder. I was born on bang, bang, bang at," gives the birth time, "in," gives the birthplace. Like, the second that thought jumped out, and I thought, "This is nobody would believe me." Nobody would believe me. And then it happened. And then again, how much power does it actually have over you? Well, he makes fun of astrology in his sermons. He said, "My Pluto was in Virgo," and he goes, "Who cares?" He doesn't care for any of that. And funnily enough, I did cast his chart to figure out how he was so wealthy. I was curious. I'm always curious. I was like, "What's the 11th house? And what's this? And what's that?" Nothing. Very spiritual person, yes. Material wealth, not present. And yet, what did he do? Lived an abundant life. He said his favorite color that he believed in was green power. He's like, "I love money." So again, speaking of, it was green, green, green. We got lots of green. So just oh my god, check out my banana pencil case. This is the cutest thing in the world. How cute is that? Love it. More green. So just don't be fearful, don't be paranoid, go forth and live a happy life. If you have any more questions, I'm always happy to chat about whatevs. Again, just get something the way that you want to get it without being paranoid of the cost or consequence. So I will leave you with this little story of Florence Scovel Shinn. She was again like one of those teachers, and she said that anything you ask for, you have to like believe it and have faith of what she would call a demonstration. Okay, so a demonstration, an act of God. And she said, always ask for and believe that you have what you want under grace and in perfect ways. She would say, under grace and in perfect ways, under grace and in perfect ways, all the time. And she had a woman come to her who needed, I think it was like $1,000. Okay. This is like maybe the 20s or the 30s. So it was like, that was a lot of money. And she really needed it. And so she went to Florence and she told her, under grace, perfect ways, you need to calm down. You're going to have it. Like God will do his thing. Just relax, relax, relax. Right. And the woman comes back sometime later, like a week, and she goes, "Oh my God, it happened. I'm so excited. The demonstration, this, that, whatever." Right. And she tells her this story. And because she was really anxious about having this money and she wanted it urgently. And Florence warned her and said, "Don't manifest things. You will manifest them anxiously. They will demonstrate in a violent manner because your faith is weak. You're scared. You think that you have to give something to get something instead of just getting it. It's your father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Right. But she missed the mark. So she was paranoid. And guess what happened? They were like coming back from like a store, her and her daughter. And her daughter stepped onto the road and got trampled by like a horse and carriage. It's not funny, but she got the $1,000 off the man. And she goes back to tell Florence, and Florence is like, "Well, you could have had the $1,000 without the accident. That's the whole point." So this whole thing about birth charts and paranoia is not, I have nothing, I'm not saying that in judgment of or even analyzing other astrologers. They know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I mean, for people who are interested in that, you don't need to pay a price to get what you want from life. You don't have to take that route. Just do the path of least resistance. Trust life, that you were born to get what you want out of life and have good things and enjoy them all the days of your life. It's that simple. You don't have to steal it. You don't have to coax it, hex it, curse it, summon it, conjure it, deceive it. Did I say coerce? You can just have it. You can just have it. It's freely given. Okay. So I feel like sometimes it's there and people use it to empower themselves for as long as they can and then they can't anymore. And sometimes people use it as an act of limitation. And that breaks my heart. And I don't like to see that. When people will say, Jupiter enters my seventh house in 6 years, so I won't get married for 6 years. I'm like, why don't you can go catch a husband tomorrow if you wanted. You can go find a wife on your lunch break if you wanted to. Why are you doing that to yourself? Because that feels awful to you. Don't believe it. It feels good for you, good to you, go for it, right? But that's the whole thing. So I hope that that makes sense. And thank you so much for asking. It was a great question. And I would love to keep coming on here a little more frequently. I obviously haven't been on in 2 weeks. I've been studying. I have two exams next month, which starts tomorrow. And so wish me luck. And thank you so much for your support and everything. It means so much to me. I love you all very, very much. Let me know what you would like to know for next time. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. I think that's all that I've really think that's it. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff, but then it's not meant to be said, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so go forth and be happy. I love you. Bye for now.